switch the accounts. So we're live now.
Excellent. Hello, everyone, for the 97th edition of the call. I have no idea if this is 97th edition, but let's call it the 97th edition of the call. Um, and why don't we start with Lubo or so, whoever of the two of you could talk about the work on the Meet UI, and because, for example, when are we going to be able to see the live streaming option on mobile?
I don't know whether Sulu is even here because he's not at work on Monday. So currently we've got a PR in that starts refactoring code and tries to have one common abstraction for toolbars because we've got 4 toolbars. Film strip only toolbar, always on top toolbar, web toolbar, mobile toolbar. So we've got a PR that tries to unify those and the buttons on them, and it also implements some basic buttons that are like common on in all those 4 cases. And obviously have some specifics in each of them, but they still have abstract bases. That is under review and should come into master this week. Then there's a second PR building on top of that, which works on more buttons. And there's no PR currently for live streaming buttons. So I don't know when that's gonna come. So he's not working this week. So I'm just hoping to get his ready PRs in this week. I know Zoli is here. He started working on those indicators, and one of them is gonna be the live indicator, like when there is a recording one. So there's gonna
And
be
obviously
that soon.
that also includes the ability to actually start the thing from mobile, right?
Well, no, but we're gonna plan for that.
Yeah. For everyone listening, this should be in the overflow menu that is going to appear. We currently kind of have the sidebar,
Yeah,
and that's
so
going to be.
So's got a third PR, which not it's not still a PR, but he's working on this overflow menu, and he showed me a version, like initial version with that. This overflow button, we click it and a bottom sheet like springs up from the bottom of the display with all the items there, and there's gonna be this one that you and me were talking about.
Yeah, and for the record, I'd like us to review in the next 3 to 6 months the way we handle small videos on mobile. Uh, and maybe think of something different because I mean, now you and I have been chatting about this and others as well. Having the thumbnails is not necessarily the most optimal thing for mobile. You don't see the names of people, which is quite annoying. And you rarely actually use the thumbnails. And so I've been thinking that we could try thinking about some alternative approaches like a scrollable list that shows like I don't know. We'll see.
Sure.
Thanks.
Just to add something, Nicole has a suggestion for display names to put them above the thumbnails. So I don't know.
Yep.
We're going to implement that. So
that would
still,
be
yeah.
that would be one way we could solve that. I agree. I'd just like to think about because personally I don't really think that the thumbnails on mobile are really bringing in that much value.
Yeah, don't usually look at them. And besides, like in a portrait mode, you see like 3 or 4, and there can be like 10 people and
Exactly. Yes.
whatever.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Libo.
Well, we've got other stuff that we've been working on.
Okay, go ahead.
So we now have a invite API that's in master. It's like two pieces. One is uh, SDK consumers can handle tapping on an invite button in the UI, and it's meant for like if they want to hook up their own like UI for searching for people to be added to the conference and stuff, and then we'll invite them because we've got this service to direct to research or whatever, and you can like search for numbers and whatnot. There's one piece, and the other piece is like just an API to directly go and call if you know the data to just say invite, and we're gonna use it for call flows to when we start a conference to invite the remote party directly at the beginning of the conference. It's been tested to work. We still need for our use case to consume it with our own UI side Atlassian. And if Pavel is here, he can probably talk about how he furthered the work on testing as well.
Yes, so
Before we go there, I'd like to just add a little bit of context to the whole invite UI thing. And I know, Lubo, you said it, but because it's rather important, I'd just like to stress on it. The whole point is that if you want to integrate Jitsi in, let's say, a chat application or a presence-based application, something that is always on for users, it is very likely that you might want to be able to ring people. So this is what it's all about. We're doing that in Stride, in Atlassian, and we're making sure that all the hooks that we're adding to Jitsi are usable by third parties as well. So, this would apply to things like Matrix, Riot, Rocket Chat. What was the other one? Z something.
Zimpy.
Right. So, if any of you is interested in that, we can talk a little bit more about how the API works in one of the following calls. Pavel.
Yes, so I was working on integrating mobile PR tests with Jenkins. So we have Android tests running already, but now I was finishing the iOS part, so I was adding a script that uses Travis to build the IPA, which is a binary for iOS. And then we'll be using that to run Torture as well for the iOS. I will be opening a PR probably today, so everyone will be able to see how this script looks. Other than that, I think the PR for the external API events was merged, and there are some fixes for the picture-in-picture around the stability there, and I think that's all from me.
Yeah, those two last things were stability-related things. One fixes. There was a crash in picture-in-picture on Android. The events that we're exposing for the SDK were kind of incomplete. Didn't always fire or fire like at inappropriate times. So Pavel was working on fixing those. Thank you, Pavel. Zoli, do you want to add something about the things that you did like those past 2 weeks? Okay, no.
Okay. So Brian, would you like to talk a little bit about what you've been doing?
Sure. So I've been working with Lenny to make changes to Jitsi Meet and the back end such that as opposed to now where you have to set up if you want to do live streaming or file recording in config at kind of deployment time, we're making a change so that both of those buttons would be available in the UI, so you can configure each of them to be able to be enabled independently, so people can choose if they want to do live recording or file recording or live streaming in the call. You'll have both buttons. So we've been spending some time on enabling that and simplifying that message flow a bit. And we had that looking pretty good at the end of last week, but because the SIP gateway stuff uses the same messages, we have to tweak some of that stuff as well. So we're going to get that taken care of and hopefully have some PRs up this week.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Nick, would you like to talk a little bit about where we are with stabilizing transcriptions, supporting Jitsi and all that? I thought I saw Nick on the call. Is he here?
No, I don't see.
Okay.
No.
Never mind. Well, we're actually working on that and making sure that it would be more easily pluggable in a production environment. So there's that. Also, Boris is not here, but he spent a little bit of time trying to do, like a couple of days trying to do performance testing to see where we stand and have we had any regressions. So we're not done with that yet. It actually turned out that we need to fix a few things before we are able to do that in our environments. I assume I'm hoping we would potentially have something for next time. But we did run a few quick tests and they were not conclusive. We weren't able to rule out or confirm issues. The more important things are around the fact that we started monitoring kind of general per megabit CPU usage on all of the tens of bridges that we have running around the world. And there doesn't seem to be, we have about, I think 16 of them running on a very old version of the bridge from more than a year and a half ago. And they seem to be giving us exactly the same values as we have with the modern bridges running today in production. So to be clear, none of those were particularly stressed though. They all were seeing kind of a few thousand calls a day. So not, not the most stressful thing. But yeah, we're still looking into that, and hopefully we're going to have better numbers next time. Okay, George, would you like to talk a little bit about the work? So I don't know how much we've talked about this in past calls because I'm short memory apparently, but George is doing this general initiative on trying to evaluate our bandwidth estimation, trying to compare the different sorts of bandwidth estimations in Chrome, REMB versus feedback send-side, transport-wide, all of that. And this has been a very interesting work. This is step one. Step two would be to see what are the things that we can actually, basically step one is to try and make sure that we are performing at least on par with the Chrome reference implementations of these algorithms. And step two would be to see, are there any ways to fine tune them for the bridge so that they perform better than that? George, would you like to talk a little bit about the current status of all this?
Yeah. So first thing that maybe is interesting is that we have built some confidence that the send-side bandwidth estimations in the JVB scenario, like you have a JVB, the participants are connected through the JVB. This specific scenario seems to behave much better with send-side bandwidth estimations as opposed to receive-side bandwidth estimations. Now, this is a little bit hard to explain because in both cases, at least the JVB is running one of the earliest GCC iterations, GCC versions, with the one that is based on the Kalman filter. So we would expect a similar behavior, but it turns out that for some reason that we haven't really understood, it's not the case. The sense-side bandwidth, when you activate sense-side bandwidth estimations, you have much better performance, much more accurate bandwidth estimations. The bridge is making much more accurate bandwidth estimations. So we
George,
are.
if I could add, also what we're seeing is that with Chrome, even though they use different algorithms, there's not much
Please
of a
don't say that.
between.
Please don't say that. Please don't say that.
You told me that.
Please.
You told me that.
I told you that, but there was a problem with our tests, the test bed, and we were not actually activating the Kalman filter GCC in our test, and that's why we were getting so similar results. So I have fixed that the previous week, and now we are getting very different results, significantly different results. So yeah, so the new linear, when you compare the Chrome implementations without the JVB in the middle, the new linear regression based algorithm behaves much better than the Kalman filter based algorithm. Sometimes it achieves 50% better performance, still better performance than the Kalman filter based GCC. However, even with the linear regression, when compared to the actual capacity of the channel, linear regression doesn't go anywhere near the actual capacity of the channel, as measured by iPerf and as estimated by the TCP congestion controller. So the TCP congestion control achieves much bigger throughput than either linear regression or Kalman filter based GCC. So these are basically the conclusions that we have drawn so far, and these are all questions, open questions. We have to understand why this happens, especially why the JVB behaves the way it behaves, even it runs the same algorithm. When you move it from the send side, from the receive side to the send side, you have better performance, more accuracy to the bandwidth estimation. So that's something we need to understand. And we're at that point. We're adding some logs in Chrome. This is a macroscopic analysis. Now we're going into the details, and we want to see how the engine actually behaves and why it gives the results that it gives.
Thank you very much, George. I think we are mostly good with the update. Does anyone else from the team want to add something?
Yeah, I'm back. I just had issues unmuting. Sorry. So from my side, the two merely visible thing that was added in the last 2 weeks, other than the ones that Liu Bu mentioned, was that the film strip is now separated from the local thumbnail is separated from the film strip. It's a beginning of a larger change on mobile, and we now have a domain list support. That's also a beginning of a larger change, if we can say that.
We're only talking about code, right, Zolly? We haven't actually done the release with any of those.
I think so, yes. Libo, do you know if any of these were released? I guess not.
No, the domain names feature is not even merged. The welcome, the local and remote thumbnails, they're separated. Is not released in terminal even, but it's in master.
Yeah, thanks.
And one more thing, we haven't pushed the announcement yet, but we can start here. So last week we pushed new stable release.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we pushed a new stable release of Jitsi. This is the version that is currently running on Jitsi, and with that we added automatically, when pushing new stable releases from now, there will be a new tag in the source code of Jitsi Meet, of Gkofo, and the video bridge, a tag which is stable some version, and you can easily spot it when going to the releases tab of the project. And there is also a changelog attached to it, a text file. And there is still a manual process where we add some highlights of those changelogs, but it's something. We have a stable tag now with a changelogs when we release. So that's it.
I also wanted to add some stuff. So it's about some small fixes that might be interested for somebody. So there was this change on libjitsi that preserves the jitsi.js namespace when loaded from a script tag. I'm not sure if somebody has issues with that, but yeah, this should work now. Also, there's another fix from today for iOS and the mobile web version. There was an issues with when you are going back through the history. Basically, some React pages were not loaded, and now they should load. Also, I wanted to mention that we have kind of the same invitation API as in the mobile SDK, but it should work for the iframe API. Yeah, and I think I don't have anything more.
Thank you, Christo, Damien, and Zali, for adding these. Anyone else? In that case, we're moving to open mic. Does anyone on the call want to discuss any issues, ideas, or ask questions?
Hello, this is Liz Barry. I'm not sure how you're open. Hi, is there a stack I should get into, or can I just ask a question?
No, you did it exactly right. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, I have a huge appreciation for all the Jitsi developers. It's so amazing to use Jitsi nowadays. And I have a question about how many people would you expect a call to be able to support?
Oh, here's the $1 million question. Unfortunately, we don't have an accurate answer for that. It largely, enormously depends on what machines you're running, what the behavior of your users is, and how your instance of Meet is configured. On Meet Jitsi, we are running the bridges on, I believe, C2 extra large Amazon instances. And no one is correcting me, so that must be it. And we have our codes limited to 50 people. Now, 50 people is probably pushing it a little bit. And in order for that to work a little bit better, I mean, pushing it not because the bridge wouldn't handle it, it's because your UI wouldn't really be adapted for that use case. In order for that to work better, sorry, was it Liz?
Yes.
Liz, I don't know if you're asking mostly about cases where you're managing your own instances, or say something like Meet Jitsi.
I'm calling from the public laboratory community, and we are not yet hosting our own instance. So I am talking about using meet.jitsi. Okay. And I'm happy to hear the number you just started with is higher than what I expect. I expect to have not more than 25 on our call tomorrow. And I expect people to be mostly connecting from laptops. But we have quite a it's going to be quite a global call. I don't know how that relates to how many people, but from Peru to India, People are asking to
got
use Jitsi. So I'm just doing my due diligence and checking in with you guys first.
Thank you. So yeah, let me just finish up what I was saying in that case. The whole thing around last 10 is not relevant to your case then, because you cannot change it. One day, if you have your own instance, we have this property called last 10, which means how many video streams you will be shown at any point. Reducing that basically lets you add more people to a call because there's less traffic per call. There's no last 10 limitation on Meet Jitsi. There is, however, another setting which automatically video mutes and audio mutes everyone who joins after the 10th participant, and they have to manually unmute if they want to speak. So the caveats that you need to keep in mind for your call tomorrow is that if you start having more people, the Meet UI is not currently really fine-tuned for larger conferences. You make sure that if you start seeing things going out of control a little bit, and that would manifest by some people getting more traffic that they can handle, for example, or something like that. Ask people to video mute by default unless they're speaking, to just mute also unless they're speaking. And people generally tend to do that, as you can see on this call, for example. Also, you would be able to mute people actually without asking them. However, you won't be able to unmute them for privacy reasons. So that's another tool that you have at your disposal. Now, we're currently working on something that would have multiple repercussions down the line. That's something that Boris is particularly involved in. It's our Octo project, which is about getting that number to at least 250 participants per call, and being able to have the same conference hosted over multiple geos simultaneously. Right now, the way things would work tomorrow for you in your next call is that your call would be hosted in the geography of the first participant to join. So if you want to tweak that, make sure that you join early from the location where you believe most of your participants would be joining from. Basically, if you join from North America, that's where the bridge will be. If you join from Europe, your bridge is going to be in either Frankfurt or Ireland. In the future, that will no longer be the case. There would be a bridge in every geo where there are participants, and those bridges would be cascaded. We expect to ship that somewhere around the end of summer. And by that point, we also expect to have at least some work that makes the user interface a little bit better fine-tuned for larger conferences, potentially auto cutting, some automatic configuration of last N, some additional auto muting features, some additional work on reordering thumbnails, so that when you have a very large list of thumbnails, you get some more sensible behavior. And who knows, maybe we would even throw Brady Bunch support in there, because people seem to be asking about that a lot. It's kind of a religious thing for us. So yeah, I hope that was helpful.
Yes, very helpful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Please let us know next time how it went for you. Is there anyone else?
Hi guys. I asked a couple of questions on the mailing list, and most of them have already been answered. A big thanks to George, who solved a major problem for me related to the stability of the quality of the video conference. One thing that still amazes me is that problem occurs on some setups and not on other setups, and we don't know. And I think George already answered via mail that he also doesn't know exactly what triggers it. So if you guys ever find out what causes that, I'd really be interested in finding out. Another question that I asked on the mailing list, there's this little icon here that allows you to define the received quality or the resolution of the video stream. Does that make, I think that's now hard coded. Does that make sense to make that configurable?
What do you mean?
Well, we're working with a couple of people who are geographically and from a network perspective very far away with a very poor connection, and their the call quality setting by default is on the highest level. So we would like to set up a instance where that setting by default is on either audio only or the lowest quality section. Does that make sense? Because I assume that Meet would immediately try to auto scale, but we want to prevent that from even being needed.
Yeah, it will auto scale. But if you want to mandate it from a server, no, that's not currently possible. I don't think
audio
so.
only is possible though.
So audio only, Gus, is like if you want to, it's not about an average quality. You're just putting everyone. There's no video. They have to manually add video afterwards.
Right.
But if you go down that direction, actually, I would probably suggest that you drop the number at which you start auto video mute and auto audio mute, because it would be less confusing for people to start doing video again. If you just put everyone in audio only, we have found that that option is not always entirely clear. They would be users would be trying to hit their camera button and they would be wondering, why the fuck am I not getting any video?
Yeah, my suggestion would be to instead of default to the highest received quality, default that to a different quality setting. But I don't know if that's a sensible configuration option to have. Something like in config.js that we can use to tweak that for individual instances.
I don't know, because I don't even know how you would come up with a reasonable value there, you know. And if you do, then why is that a particularly better option than starting with video muted, for example, for everyone? But anyways, that's a debate, I guess. I guess if we had a PR about starting with a different thing, I wouldn't necessarily object.
Right. Yeah, you're not telling me that I'm completely mad, so I might be trying to put this in a PR and then see where the debate takes off from there.
Do you experience issues right now? I mean, is your request based on a problem that you're facing?
I've been asked to see if this is possible by people who are joining from remote regions in Africa and talking to people in the States and Canada. I've not experienced it myself, but I'm told that these people experience it. And the first thing that they do all the time is tweak that video quality setting. So they just want to be able to not have to do that manually every time they join a conference.
So I would be curious to see what happens if you just make it auto mute for everyone, auto video mute for everyone.
Yeah,
because
but I think
then
they want to see each other. But yeah.
Well, they would enable the video when they need it. That's still entirely open to them. And because there would be less video streams, then maybe the bandwidth estimation from the bridge to those remote participants would be able to cope better with the issue.
Yeah, that might.
I don't know.
I'll play around. I'll suggest it and play around with it. See what results it gets.
Okay. Another thing that we've actually wanted to do more around that setting is to also make it impact the send quality, not just the receive quality. And that's been on our to-do list for at least a year. So I don't know if you're feeling adventurous, but that would imply SDP managing. So
yeah,
you gotta have a fetish for that.
A bit of my pay grade there. I'm very helpful for Saul to help me with the tiny PRs that I'm doing in that end. It would be a great feature, but I'm not sure if I'm qualified to put that in.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Gus. Anyone else? Going twice. Yep. Who's that?
It's me stopping the recording.
Okay. Well, then, thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and talk to you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.